A very good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and myself, Sunil Osman. We do this live on TikTok every Monday between 3:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. Standard South African time. If you've missed any of our topics, you can catch up on Influencer SA on YouTube and IGTV. Eugene, what are we speaking about today?
Today's topic is quite a big one. Today is assumptions versus reality. So yes, this is a big topic today.
Assumptions versus reality. And we'll be right back with that straight after this. Welcome back to Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and myself, Sunil Osman. And we are speaking about assumptions versus reality. So, Eugene, before we start, let's just give a brief definition about what an assumption is. It is the belief about events that have taken place that have been shaped by conversations or something that you read or see. And I know we need to give an example of an assumption. And here's a very good one, which I think is very relevant, especially when it comes to work or business. It's when you don't get a promotion at work, for example, and you think, oh, I'm not good at my job, where that may not be the correct conclusion. You may be assuming that you're not good. Or your partner is not loving enough, so then you have trust issues. Or your mother or your family don't understand the choices you make, and then you assume that they don't love you. That's not always the case. What do you have to say, Eugene?
No, definitely. And in business, it could be something silly as in you weren't like you weren't involved in a decision that needed to be made. Then you like, oh no, was on. You know what I mean? Like you're going to assume things whether they are correct or not is what we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly. And when you tell yourself something without the actual evidence behind it, that is when you start making an assumption. And it takes me right back to when I was a younger person than I am now, because I'm still young. And my choir teacher, so yes, I used to sing in a choir, said to me one day, never assume. Look at the way you spell assume. You make an ass out of you and me. You make an ass out of you and me. And, another assumption, and I spoke to somebody just this weekend at a gig I was doing, and they said they will never go to another city. They'll never go work in another city because it's going to be too dangerous to be in a big city. These are assumptions you're making. So you may decline a job offer simply because of what you have seen in the media or what people depict the place to be like. And these assumptions can be dangerous because it blocks possibilities. It creates a whole lot of negative thinking around other opportunities.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like you could potentially not take this amazing opportunity because you've assumed something that you actually have no facts about. Like, oh, like you say about, oh, this city is dangerous. Like, I assumed a lot of things about London before I moved there. And when I moved there, I was like, yeah, well, that's a load of rubbish, eh? Like, I was expecting, like, yeah, this big, yeah, it was just reality set in, and I was like, hmm, all those all those daydreams and thoughts I had just assumed with me and all my friends, all those assumptions we made. We'll go there for a year, we'll work hard, we'll save up money, come back and buy a car, and yeah, that didn't work out.
The wonderful thing about an assumption, and because today's topic is assumptions versus reality, the reality is actually the opposite of an assumption. The reality is literally the opposite of an assumption. And one of the things we do need to note, which is something that's been noted very importantly by our producer Maria, is that assumptions are based on learned behavior. So sometimes your parents will tell you something, the media will tell you something, and then you base that on what your assumptions are going to be.
Mm.
Your culture could teach you that. You could have been taught something as a child. Your life experience could lead you to assume certain things about people.
Mm.
If you're looking at something like, and I hate to speak about politics too much, but we'll speak about the one of the ex-presidents of South Africa saying that if you wear a short dress, the assumption is that you want to be raped. We take it as deep as that. Or you take it as you see these men who are showing their bodies off on social media, or these women in swimming costumes or whatever. You assume that they're confident. Meanwhile, they are not. These
Mm.
assumptions need to be
Mm.
evaluated. You need to not do things like taking on your assumptions your parents have taught you to believe in. If she wears a short skirt, she's a slut.
Mm.
These are all
Definitely.
learned behaviors.
Mm. And I know we're going to leave comments for afterwards, but there's one here that says assumptions are based on previous failures and childhood drama. Not just drama necessarily, but childhood experiences, childhood, like you learn a lot from your parents. When you're a child growing up, and if your parents say the sky is green from day one, you're going to believe that the sky is green. You know what I mean? You've assumed that because that's what you've been taught. So being able, like the comment carries on saying, yeah, if you don't face those and heal from them, you'll never be able to stop assuming. So yes, you've gone from assuming sort of things because of knowledge that had been implanted from by you. This is where your own knowledge is going to be quite handy learning so that you stop assuming and you start facing reality.
Yeah. So when we grow up, as you mentioned, our parents teach us a lot, and when you get older, you start becoming yourself. You you start learning to question what your parents have told you about. I'll give you another example. When they say you shouldn't do certain things, like in my own family, by the time you finish university, you're married. The assumption that is that if you're not married by the time you are out of university or you're 23 years old, you are a failure to the family. That is the assumption.
Mm,
Meanwhile,
mm,
here I am at the age of 38, unmarried, and I have got the most amazing woman in my life. If I had gotten married to that person I was meant to marry when I was 23, I wouldn't have had the opportunity with her. The
mm,
assumption
mm,
was that I would never find true love or never be successful or never, all those, never, never, never. But we have to evaluate and ask ourselves, why do you have those nevers? Because your parents themselves have also got learned behavior. They have
mm,
been taught
mm.
that. But the assumption like that you will not have a happy marriage, not have a happy love life. Look at me now. I am the happiest I've ever been in my entire life in my love because I waited. The assumption was incorrect. The assumption had no real evidence. It was just learned behavior.
And that's the thing. It is because of how easy is it to, like, okay, in our day and age, if someone says something to you now, 90% of the time, for me, I'm not going to assume anything, especially if it's like really interesting and it's like a historical fact. I'm just going to go Google. Oh, that really did happen. You know what I mean? Like getting that knowledge for myself instead of just because I've heard some random facts in the last year where I was like, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
That can't be like that. But so yeah, so getting learning because as you say, generational assumption can lead you down a path because
Yes.
now if everyone assumes that this is the way you should live and this generations are going to live that way, but if you don't actually face reality and realize, well, actually this is not the way it should be. Like I know, okay, this isn't a bit of an example. Like my mom has said things in the past 2 years where I'm like, I don't remember it being like that. I don't. So whose reality is correct? Because obviously she was there and I was there, but we both have a different story of the same time, which makes you
Yeah,
wonder.
yeah, yeah. A very good point that's made here, and I know again we're not responding to comments, but I'm going to speak about this quickly. By Maria, where she says, "Could an assumption be a type of insecurity?" I say yes. An assumption can definitely create other insecurities, and you can also be
Oh yes.
insecure due to assumptions. It damages the capacity to relate to others. For example, if you think other people are not on the same level of thinking, you will stop listening to them and you make assumptions about what they're saying. You take somebody in a relationship, for example, who's extremely jealous or insecure, they will ask you the most random questions because they're assuming other aspects. They assume if you mention children, that you're talking about your own children. They assume if you're going out to party to meet with people. If you are like me, where I'm just a very nice guy, I like to be sociable, I'm mixing with men and women all the time. And if you take somebody who's insecure, they will assume that, oh, you can't trust this guy. But you have to ask yourself, what evidence is there? What has happened in the past life of the person making the assumptions? Because you don't want to leave the other person feeling trapped or misunderstood, because this can lead to a low self-esteem and sometimes depression, because whoever you are, you'll be sitting there, what do I need to do to prove to this person they can trust me? Meanwhile, it's not your issue. It's the person
Mm,
making the assumptions.
mm.
And I've got first-hand experience of this.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience, or?
So I I got to I got to a situation where our producer put me in a scenario where she pretended to make assumptions that were completely beyond my understanding. And it put me in a situation where I felt angry, confused. I was retaliating from ego. I was saying things from my brain, not my heart. I sent her like 6 videos getting all angry. And I was thinking, what is going on here? Because there was no reason for her to behave the way she does or did at that time.
Did. Hmm.
Yeah, did. And I thought, where are these trust issues coming from suddenly? Where is this break in communication? And that's what assumption does. Assumptions makes you lose that communication. You start retaliating. You start trying to prove these false accusations. You try to prove yourself when you shouldn't
Hmm.
actually have to prove yourself, because it's the other person. So she put me in
Hmm.
this situation where I was like, what is going on here? I'm so confused. I've never cheated my entire life.
Confused, angry, surprised, all these emotions.
Exactly. And the question here is, could also assumptions mean a quality of a bad habits in your own self? It could mean in yourself, because what you're not doing is you're not taking time to understand the situation, or you have your own issues that you are projecting onto other people.
So one of the comments here said triggers. And yes, triggers is a big thing. There might be certain things in your life that you've gone through that someone else does, and then all of a sudden you're assuming this and this about them because of past experiences. But in retrospect, all they were trying to do was this, and you're like you completely missed it because of all the assumptions from past experiences, triggers, and like yes, communication skills are poor with people that assume a lot between each other. You know what I mean? Like this is one of the points that communication between people
Yes,
is key, because
yes,
instead of just assuming that this is what they meant, saying, hey, when you said this, like, but a lot of us don't want to go back and say, hey, can you just tell me what you meant by this, because you're scared that you're right, and
Yeah.
you then it hurts even more. But in, as I say, in retrospect, they could be like coming from such a place of love, but you've assumed because of past triggers, past assumptions, past experiences.
Yeah, and some assumptions, as Maria has said, some assumptions can mean that there is a guilt, there's a guilty conscience, or there's something that has
Mhm.
happened before. It's such a great point there, because that guilt sneaks in. But I can feel us moving towards the to try and find solutions, which is what we try and do. And we are speaking about assumptions versus reality. So maybe Eugene, you we've got seven possible solutions that have been given to us, and they're really good solutions. So maybe Eugene, you can tell us what the first one is, um, as a solution to making assumptions.
So the first one is to learn to recognize that there are previous assumptions that you have in life, and that you've got to learn to recognize those and not get not let them get you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not learning from past experiences, you're going around in a circle. This is what we keep saying in a lot of these motivations. Like, you've got to learn from the past. Like, instead of with assumptions, this you don't want to keep going forward, like assuming, where you could be getting it wrong from day one. So
No,
yes, learn
absolutely.
to
And
recognize.
it definitely recognize, and also that's got a lot to do with self-awareness, where you just go, oh well, okay, you know. Another good solution, this would be solution number two of seven, would be to write down these assumptions. So when you write down the assumptions, you evaluate for yourself why you are assuming this of other people. Or if somebody else is making an assumption about you, ask yourself, why are they making these assumptions? What is my behavior that makes them think like this? What would the solution number three be?
Well, that you must remember that assumptions can come in all shapes and sizes. Like, even someone just saying to you, go do the dishes or something like that, you could be assuming whatever. Like, there's it, it can literally you can take any situation. That's why it comes in all shapes and sizes. You can take any situation and assume something about it, where you could have it completely wrong. So
Yeah.
making sure that you're finding out the um, getting to grips with the reality of it all, and making, because like, how many times have you heard there's always three sides to a story: their side, my side, and the truth. And there's always that in between part. Like, here's your side, here's your assumptions, here's reality, and this is something. So where does it all fit in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look out for assumptions, in other words. And like the example Eugene gave, where if your spouse doesn't do the dishes, and then you just assume they're doing it to annoy you. Meanwhile, they could be very busy responding to emails, or or making a TikTok. So solution number four of seven would be something like asking the correct questions, asking the what and the how. Avoid the why questions. Why questions always create scenarios in your head, whereas you ask the what or the how. You can it's very powerful, because you start finding solutions to why the assumptions are being made, which is so important. And that will then take you find the proof, or find out the facts you have when you ask the what or the how. Find out the facts behind everything before you make those assumptions. So you can understand why you feel the way you do, why you make the judgments you do about the assumptions, why you making those assumptions. Ask the what or the how. What's number five, Eugene?
Well, agreeing to not have control of everything. I know a lot of us, we're very we want everything to run our way, and when it doesn't, we assume that this could be wrong, or this could be wrong, or why is this not working this way I wanted it? Oh, I'm planning all of this, and now this, is it me, is it them? Oh, just you don't need control of everything. Like, I know by nature we want, but sometimes you just got to take that step back and see how things play out because you can't be right all the time. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, and as you mentioned the word control there, control is often linked to assumptions because when you make assumptions, you think you are in control. You think you know everything, as you said, and it's not always always the situation. And sometimes you don't need to know everything because it'll give you a stress relief if you just ignore it. Some people just ignore the assumptions people make of them. Number
Like there's a
six of
before we
seven.
before we go on to number six, there's a comment here that says controlling behavior is toxic. So yes, that's exactly it. Like being able to let go of that toxic behavior. Yes, there's obviously levels of controlling that's different. Like being a control freak when it comes to your work, that's not a bad thing. Being a control freak where everything in your house has to be done the way you say, that's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, absolutely. So, number six of seven solutions for assumptions versus reality. Look for places where you feel stuck. So, take, for example, like a friendship. What are the assumptions of how a friendship should be? What should a friendship be? What should a relationship be? What should what should your life be like? What are the assumptions you're making around those? And again, it comes right back to evaluating, getting the evidence together, understanding why you feel the way you do about things, why you're making those assumptions besides actually facing the reality. Number seven, Eugene.
This one I just struggled reading the second word. Become what? Mindful. Is that mindful? It is mindful, eh?
Yes. Yes.
Is that your writing?
No.
Yeah, so point number seven is become mindful. Um, open mind, like there's another comment. Open-minded people usually open different perspectives, allow for growth. That's exactly it. Becoming mindful of not only who you are as a person, but as we mentioned, everyone's on a journey at their own time and realizing where they are on their journey and being mindful that some people are happy where they are. Some people want to do more. Like, not assuming, and I had this problem, I know I did, not assuming that everyone actually just wants the best for themselves, because that's not always the fact. That's not always
Yeah.
facts. Some people are quite happy where they are. So, being mindful of not only yourself but others, this will help definitely with not assuming so much.
Yeah, exactly. And when you become mindful, you will become more aware about how you act and also how you react.
Mm,
Reactions are so
mm,
powerful.
mm,
And so many
mm.
people do things for reaction that are not actually necessary. And it's sometimes based on assumptions which are completely broken communication. Completely broken communication. On that note, Eugene, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this with Monday Motivation. Sunny Motive, written by Sunil Osman, uses and explains motivational quotes to encourage readers of all ages to take bold steps in life, love, and business. Order your copy now by emailing Lauren Moy Publishing on sales@laurenmoypublishing.com. Also available on takealot.com and amazon.com.
Cool.
Welcome back to Monday Motivation with Eugene Wood and myself, Sunil Osman. Thank you very much again for joining us on TikTok. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to click on that subscribe notifications. If you're watching this on IGTV, follow and share with your friends. Today's topic has been assumptions versus reality. You've come in at the conclusion part of it. Eugene, what do you have to say?
Well, to conclude, being mindful draws your attention to your own assumptions. So, like we've just said now, being mindful of yourself and others, especially of yourself, will draw your attention to your own assumptions of people, business, everything around you where you always assuming things, just you might just end up going, well, actually, I know what I mean by this. I know what they kind of mean by it, but I'm not going to assume. I'm rather going to be mindful and just hope that they had the best intentions, but
Yeah.
learning from past mistakes, yeah, being mindful in yourself.
Yes, yes. From my side, I wrote something down which I would like to read, and it goes like this. The more you know about your assumptions, the more power you have to change what you are assuming. Rather than close possibilities you have for you and your life. And in final conclusion, don't forget how you spell the word assume. S U me. You assume you're going to make an S out of you and me. Create dialogue. Get to know people before you make assumptions.
Hmm, definitely. Because you don't know what someone's going through.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for Monday Motivation. Today's topic has been assumptions versus reality. Eugene, what are we going to speak about next time?
Next topic is investing in yourself. This is a
There is a
big topic.
big one for Eugene. Eugene's very excited. So
I'm
actually,
very excited.
in my book Sunny Motive, there is a quote that says, "You are a business," and I think I will include that as a green screen because it's very linked to investing in yourself. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on Monday Motivation. Love and light.
Have a good day, guys.